scenes like this in London this weekend. Michael Jackson will be flying in to do the opening performance at the 1996 Brit Awards. Michael will be performing his #1 song, Earth Song, as he did on German TV in November last year. This time, though, the organisers of the Brit Awards say that the staging and choreography will be unique to this one-off event.
And the real drama of the evening was provided by Michael Jackson's spectacular and rare TV appearance. Something Jarvis Cocker really got excited about.
But first, pulp singer Jarvis Cocker was arrested at last night's Brit Awards in London. Jarvis jumped onto the stage as Michael Jackson was performing his #1 hit single, Earth Song.
You can see Jarvis in the circle here. Jackson says he's sickened, saddened, shocked, cheated and angry, and he's accusing Jarvis of actually attacking the young children who appeared with Jackson on stage. Pulp's record label claimed this footage proves that Jarvis is innocent of any kind of attack. In fact, Jarvis said his actions were a form of protest at the way Michael Jackson sees himself as some Christ-like figure with the power of healing.
I was just sat there, and watching it and feeling a bit ill because he's there doing his Jesus acts. And they arrested me and said, you ran onto that stage and assaulted some kids. I couldn't really believe that they were saying that at first. But then, they carted me off to the police station. So.
Pandemonium, fandemonium and even media-demonium broke out as Cocker arrived for the verdict. During police questioning, he'd maintained, and the video bore him out, that he didn't touch a child. The police agreed.
Jarvis Cocker has fully cooperated with the police, who've considered the complaints that have been made by the children and have come to the decision that no action of any nature whatsoever should be taken against him.
At a packed news conference within the last hour, Jarvis Cocker expressed his relief that charges were not being pursued.
It's not very nice to have allegations of, that you would go and assault children, go and punch children or whatever. I know that not everybody believes what they read in newspapers, but some people do, and it's not very nice to think that as you're going about your daily business, people think you're the kind of person who'd jump on a stage and hit children.
And for the so-called man of the people, relief that his name had been cleared.
It's not exactly something you put on your CV, is it? Child warrior.
But would he do it again?
Probably not, given what's happened since then. No.
And Michael Jackson?
I wish him well, I hope he sorts his problems out.
So, before we get to A Clockwork Orange, I'd love to hear about your involvement with Michael Jackson. I'm sure all of our listeners will. I believe you were on stage at the famous Brits performance of Earth Song. This was at the time that the frontman of the band Pulp, Jarvis Cocker, invaded the stage in protest to Michael Jackson's godlike persona, if you will, that he was portraying during that performance. Can you tell us how that came about, and what was that experience like for you?
It should have been the most wonderful experience, because I'd always wanted to be in a big Hollywood musical, and we had a Hollywood musical director for it, and the rehearsals all went very well. It was very exciting. Eventually Michael Jackson came along and told us how wonderful we all were, and there were 24 children and 16 adults, I think, in the show. So we all budded the children and to help look after them. Then when it came to the performance, and we'd had a lovely dress rehearsal, everything had gone very well. This wretched man, Jarvis Cocker, came busting on stage. Now, that week we had the IRA sending bombs in London. We had very high security, very high guards outside. And I didn't know Jarvis Cocker from Adam, and I thought someone was coming on to shoot Michael.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And it was really, really scary, and the man was so irresponsible. And what was even more infuriating was that afterwards the press thought it was great, because it was a great story.
Right.
They tended to be on his side, whereas he, in fact, he said he'd done it because of Michael Jackson being a sort of Christ-like figure in the way this thing was. But it was a fictional thing. It was a song, and he was lovely. Everybody was great. The whole crew were great. And what had happened was Jarvis Cocker hadn't got an award at all that year, and he was pulled in to do some introducing or something. And he said to one of the girls, this is what I've heard, he said to one of the makeup girls, I'm going to pull a stunt. And with no consideration at all for anyone else. And of course, the maddening thing was we didn't get asked to the party afterwards. They sent us all home to try and stop us talking to the press. And stuff.
Right. Oh, my gosh.
So it rather spoiled the evening for us, although it made it very famous.
Yeah. I mean, right. It's great that you can laugh about it. I mean, you know, they say today's embarrassment makes for tomorrow's great story.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Yes.
It is. And, you know, it's, as an artist, I always want to respect statements.
Other people's work.
Yeah, but it just sounds
like
I
felt.
Wrong, very wrong place and time to make a kind of a guerrilla art statement, if you will, with the invading of the stage. I mean, Pulp were very big at the time, and I'm not surprised the media had kind of sided with him.
Yeah, it's such a shame for all those kids who'd worked so hard.
Yeah,
they came in after school every day for days, and it must have been so upsetting for them.
But, you know, I have to, you know, put it in a positive light and say again that it's really great that you can look back and laugh about it. I guess, you know, as long as no one was really, you know, physically harmed, that's just you know, an amazing story, and to have your very unique perspective on it. Thank you.
It's been my chance to talk about it.
Can I ask, Tony, were you at that performance?
No, I was at home. I knew nothing about it till she came back steaming mad.
We lived a long way away.
We lived a long way away, and we had a dog, and frankly, I wasn't invited.
Wow. Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and please don't call me Shirley.
I love it.
So many answers we may never know. Too many questions. Get on with the show. Time for the chorus. Only whispers. It's Kubrick's universe. All right. It's Kubrick's universe.
Open the podcast doors, Hal.
It's Kubrick's Universe, the Stanley Kubrick Podcast.
Hey friends and fellow Kubrick fans, welcome to a new installment of Kubrick's Universe. Shirley Jaffe is a British actress who trained at the Central School of Speech and Drama in 1954. Among her other early jobs, she was in the first British Theatre in the Round company at Scarborough with Stephen Joseph and later Alan Ayckbourn. Her film career began in the mid-1950s with crime dramas The Passing Stranger in 1954 and The Secret Tent in 1956. Shirley was a regular cast member of the long-running TV serial Emergency Ward 10 as Nurse Angela Foster in the late 60s, and in 1970 she appeared in Hammer's Taste the Blood of Dracula with the late great Christopher Lee. She appeared on television in the infamous Michael Jackson's Earth Song live performance at the Brits in 1996, which you just heard her speak about, and as a Greek nun in Little Britain Abroad. She's directed and acted in plays in Brighton, Edinburgh, the West End, and Helsinki festivals, and recently played Irene in the award-winning British feature Ambleton Delight. She was nominated for a Star Award in the Brighton Fringe for her performance as Nana in the musical Here Comes the Bride. More recently, she appeared with her husband Tony in the music video to Spankox's To the Club. Tony Jaffe, 83 at the time, said, "Looking at the gorgeous bottom of an almost naked fire eater nearly gave me a heart attack. I've been dreaming about her at night. Parts of my body I had forgotten about seemed to come alive, and I was doing things I thought I could never do again." Shirley, for her part, said, "My husband hasn't been up for it for so long, I had no idea he could still do it." This is Kubrick's universe, and so, in 1971, Shirley made an appearance in Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. She played a nurse who helps administer the first round of Ludovico treatment to Alex DeLarge, of course played inimitably by Malcolm McDowell. Skybreak, the home she shared with her husband Tony, was also featured in the film as the interior location for the scene in which Alex and his droogs attack a writer and his wife, played by Patrick McGee and Adrienne Corey. Her latest film is called Nurse Shirley Foster. So, Shirley and Tony Jaffe, thanks for being with us and welcome to Kubrick's universe.
So, okay, I must segue into questions about Clockwork Orange, and I would love to know how you first came about becoming involved with the film.
Actually, it was our house that first got us involved. We were living in a next village called Elstree, which is where the film studios are.
Of course.
And we bought a plot of land about 10 kilometers up the road. And then we thought we ought to build a house on it. And Shirley had a friend whose brother was an architect. So we said, will you build us a house? And he said, I'm terribly busy. I would love to, but I've got some young friends who just qualified. They're very good. And how about them? And he said, fine. So these two guys turned up with their wives, and they looked over the plot, and they said, so what sort of house do you want? And give us sort of vague instructions, a number of bedrooms, a lot. And they went away and said, we'll be back in a few weeks. And they came back in a few weeks with a balsa wood model about 1 meter long and half a meter wide.
Wow.
And I looked at it, and at that time, I had been on the planning committee of our local council, and I'd said, you'll never get that through planning. And it took 6 months to get through planning. And the architects happened to be one, Norman Foster, and the other one was Richard Rogers.
Okay, tell our listeners a bit about them.
Lord Foster.
Yeah,
and Lord Rogers, and they had done things like the Pompidou Center, Hong Kong Airport. They're two of the leading architects in the world, and they were joint with their wives. They were the team of 4. That was their first commercial project.
Oh my goodness, that's wow.
And so when it was built, it was featured in an architectural magazine, and the magazine was seen by Kubrick's art director, and they rang up and said, we'd be interested in using your house for the film.
Right.
And then they said, following it on, can Mr. Kubrick come along and see it? So we said yes. And I was alone in the house on a nice spring day, and doorbell rang, went up, and he said, I'm Stanley Kubrick, and my guys aren't here yet. Can I come in? I said, sure, come in. We sat down, and so I thought, what the hell do I say to Stan? Do I say, 2001, great film, or Strange Love, wonderful? What do I say to him?
All right.
And he looked at me and he said, you've got a television in the house? And I said, yeah, why? He said, well, can we see it? I said, why? He said, there's a great game of rugby on, England against Wales. And the two of us are standing in front of this rugby game saying, hi, come on, kill him, get him. And they're standing. That was my first meeting before Shirley had met him. And that's how he got the house and wanted the house for the film.
That's incredible. Wow. Okay, well, I believe the listeners have been kept in suspense long enough. You are, of course, referring to the iconic house in A Clockwork Orange with the writer and his wife and the
That's
extremely powerful scenes that take place there. This is none other than the Radlett House, which I believe is also known as Skybreak. This was the house that was used as the interiors of the writer's home and was the real home of Shirley and Tony at the time before Clockwork Orange even began shooting. So there's a fascinating bit of crossover trivia, of course, because Shirley ended up having a part in the film. So I want to ask, since you brought up the house, how long, do you recall how long they were filming in Radlett House?
They originally booked it for, I think, 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, they asked for an extension because we weren't allowed to stay in the house. We were moved out with the family to a very, very palatial hotel,
Nice.
funded obviously by Kubrick.
Mm-hmm.
And even our dog, we had an old, lovely dog, and we said, we can't move this dog into kennels. So there was a guard appointed to look after the dog, and a sign saying, do not feed ancient Labrador, which everybody ignored. Because we also, I should say...
That was actually on the call sheets.
Yeah, because we had a very large garden, and they built a tented village with everything from hairdressing, toilets, showers, restaurant.
Wow.
And so the question being, how long did it run? Well, originally a fortnight, but it finished up...
2.5 months.
2.5 months.
And then we had to move back out while they decorated the house.
Yeah.
Again.
Wow. That's so from 2 weeks to 2.5 months.
Our children lived on smoked salmon and chips for supper.
Every night.
I can't see a problem with that myself. I'm a big fan of both of those things. Wow. And so cool to hear your personal tale of Stanley not just putting you up in some posh digs, so to speak, but to accommodate your old Labrador and have that signage. Of course, people were going to ignore that, but many Stanley's enthusiasts know that he was very much an animal person, an animal lover. So I think it's really cool that he would bend over backwards to accommodate your pup. I have a particularly soft spot in my heart for old dogs with gray faces, but that's for another topic. I'm sure you know what I mean. Yeah. Were there any times that you visited, your home while it was the set of a film?
Yeah, we were given permission to go anytime we liked.
The only time that they had a closed set was when they were doing the rape scene, because the actress Adrian Corrie was obviously stripped off, and no one was allowed on the set. But apart from that, we and our neighbours used to go and watch the filming. And because my children were at school, I had to come in and the dog was there. I used to come in every day, walk the dog, talk to the dog, even before they got in. And once they got in, of course, I wanted to come in and talk to people because I'd already done my little bit before they ever moved into the house.
Incidentally, talking about that, Adrian Corrie, the Shirley just mentioned, I was in the house one day and she came up to me and she said, I love your dog. And I said, yeah, he's a beautiful dog. She said, I hate bloody dogs. I love your dog. And I said, why?
Oh,
She said,
wow.
he gets me more work. And I said, what do you mean more work? She said, well, when I'm getting to the last take and that's it, and I've got nothing further to do, your dog manages to bark in the middle of my last take, and I get another day's work out of it. And if you know the film, if you listen carefully, we know that there's one scene where you hear a little woof, very lightly, which was the dog. And Kubrick said, I can't care less, nobody else will know it. So my dog hasn't got a credit, but he has a little bark in the film.
He's got a bigger part than me. He speaks.
I was also there.
Wonderful.
The day that there's a scene where at the end of the film where he comes back into the house and he's fed spaghetti bolognese and red wine.
Goodness.
Alex.
Alex is.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
It was very kind of you, sir, to leave this out for me. There was no one around when I finished my bath, so I started. Hope that's all right, sir.
Of course.
And I was there for that scene, and in our kitchen they were boiling a huge tub of spaghetti sauce, and the red wine was Ribena, which is I don't know, in the States you've got Ribena. It's
yes, we do.
Blackcurrant drink. And I think it was something like 12 takes. He had to have a fresh bowl of spaghetti and a fresh glass of Ribena from this thing. And at the end of the 12th take, he went into the toilet and he was violently sick.
Oh my God! Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, there's only so much Ribena and pasta bolognese you can put down your gullet, right? Without getting nauseous.
Do you still feel suicidal?
Well, put it this way. I feel very low in myself. I can't see much in the future. And I feel that any second something terrible is going to happen to me.
I want to ask about Alex's first visit to Radlett House when he knocks down the bookshelf. We can only assume this was not your actual bookshelf, but rather part of the set which Stanley put in. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Were there bits of your own furniture, fixtures, and fittings that are seen in the film?
When he pulled down the bookshelves, we didn't know this until we saw the film, and behind it there was it was like a wall with a cupboard underneath it with a blackboard door. It was in the kids' playroom, as we used it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they pulled down the bookshelves, you could see the kids scribble on the.
And it's still on the film.
And of course, it's still on the film.
This is awesome.
With a happy refrain, and I'm singing, just singing. In the rain, doopy doo, doopy 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 doo, doopy 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 doo, doopy doopy doo.
They use mostly furniture that they put in. There's a big painting in the living room in that scene. And if you look at that, that was painted by Mrs. Kubrick, I understand.
Oh, yeah. Stephen, chime in. Do you know about that? Was that Christiana's painting?
Yes, it was, yeah. The really big one to the right-hand side of the screen, yeah. Yeah.
So many fascinating little bits, right? And the subtlety and the details. All of his films have those layers upon layers of rich visual information. And I believe he used Christiana's paintings in other films as well. I mean, certainly in Eyes Wide Shut. Is that correct, Stephen?
That is correct.
Can I throw something in which I saw, which I think made a huge influence on me? And I remember I'm just a husband visiting my house. I came in watching filming one day, and there was a large number of people making a lot of row. and I was looking around, and if you look at the windows at the back of the house, they're at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
They're not straight. They're
correct. Yes.
And I looked down, and on his haunches was Stanley Kubrick, with his hands sort of cupped over his eyes, and he was obviously planning a shot.
Right.
And I swear that if you had gone up to him and aimed a punch, there would be a force field that would have hit your hand about 16 inches. I learned so much. Watching him, it taught me about concentration. And it helped me throughout any acting I've been doing. And that's down to Stanley Kubrick. And I've never seen that so much in any person.
That's so gracious of you to have that perspective and to share that with us. Really, I mean, anything else you want to share or expound upon that? How did that affect, the way you say it, permanently impacted your craft of acting? To paraphrase, anything you want to share, please do.
Yeah, well, it helped me when I was starting to direct shows, musicals and things, to have that concentration. And also when I was playing a part, I was playing Tevye in Fiddler in a local show, and you've got the scene where the girl's going up to Siberia, and I just sat on a stool there while she was singing her song, etc. And somebody came up to me and said, I just watched you. I didn't even watch the girl. I watched you because you were just so absolutely still. I didn't think anybody could do that on a stage for that long.
Wow.
And so down to Kubrick. Was
down to Stanley. Wow. So even while when you're acting in Fiddler on the Roof, you're thinking of him or implementing some tool it seems like you feel you'd gained by observing him.
Absolutely.
That's extraordinary insight. We love learning about this stuff. You folks are wonderful to answer these and again to expound. This is going beyond my expectations, and I'm loving every moment. I hope we're not boring you yet.
You cannot be serious.
I am serious, Tony, and don't call me Shirley. Okay, brilliant. Gosh, what did your neighbors think while this was filming? I mean, they had to have been aware that there was a film crew going on. Did they know that it was Stanley Kubrick? And did you have a relationship with your neighbors where you got some feedback on what they must have been thinking?
Well, they saw more of it almost than we did because they were next door. Yeah. And at one stage, I think it was when... no, it's ours.
I'm sorry, Emma.
Okay.
Hold on, guys. Hold on.
Don't worry. Okay. Don't worry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Please.
Okay.
No worries at all.
I'll over and I'll take on. Right. We're
Please tell Tony not to worry.
Yeah. Where were we? Should we start? Do you want me to start again on that?
If you'd like. I was just asking about what your neighbors must have been thinking when. Yeah.
Well, Richard and Molly Myers, who live next door, and they saw more of the filming probably than we did. And one day when Malcolm McDowell was very, very cold and wet, I can't remember what it was from. They did some scenes down in the garden where they got him very, very wet for one of the scenes. And he came into their house and had a shower afterwards, because I don't think you could get into our bathroom because it was so full of stuff and furniture and all the rest of it, stuff that had been moved out of the living area.
Right.
Oh, but you're cold and shivering. Julian, draw a bath for this young man.
Certainly, Frank. Thank you very much, sir. God bless you, sir.
Your neighbors took pity on poor young Malcolm and gave him a hot shower.
and they were very. It was all very friendly, and of course the neighbours. Some of them got fed up because the road was all blocked up a lot with all their vans and things. You might like to hear another anecdote. When the company was supposed to move in and they didn't. I think it was because Alex got his eyes infected. I'm saying.
What
Alex.
do you recall? What do you recall about that? Malcolm, of course.
When they clipped them back,
right.
He got an infection in his eyes, and also one of the scenes where he got soaked again, he got flu, and we were stuck in this hotel. Well, it was lovely as far as I was concerned. I mean, no housework, absolutely beautiful food.
Right.
Living the sort of lady like a film star life. It was great. But anyhow, when that happened, when eventually I went along one day after I dropped the kids off at school, and I went to see Amos, the dog, and Amos was in the road in front of the nosh wagon, and they had put a big Edam cheese outside on the ground, and there was Amos with his mouth like Dracula. I thought I was in the wrong film, with all this red from the Edam cheese all around his long teeth that they have, the canines. He was talking to me. He was going. He was so excited. He was trying desperately to tell me what was going on while we weren't there.
He's saying, I never told you that Edam was my favorite cheese in the world.
No. I didn't told you, know he liked cheese.
Yeah, well, had he been able to express that prior, he might have been able to get his canines on some good Edam cheese many years prior. But hey, whenever the discovery comes your way, right? I suppose we have to go with it. Thank you.
I used to have lunch there every day too. Well, while they were filming, so I'd go along and. It saved them money from paying for my lunch in the hotel, of course.
And yet, richly deserved treatment to be put up in a lavish hotel like that. Well,
that was luck, actually, because first of all, we were going to be put up at a nice hotel, but it wasn't nearly as nice as the one we ended up in. And then they changed their minds, and I was really disappointed because. They said they weren't going to use our house. I think they were going to use the other one that I think maybe it was the frontage of the house.
Okay.
Anyway, they did the one that they finally changed their minds about and came back to ours. By this time, the one in the town of St Albans was booked up. So they suggested this other one. And it all worked out quite beautifully because this was a 5-star hotel, and it was quite beautiful. And my kids paid for me to have my 80th birthday there a few years ago.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool! That's wonderful.
I couldn't think what they kept saying. You're going away, but it's not very far, and you don't have to pack a lot. Just a party dress and a.
For me, as a lifelong fan of Kubrick's and someone who's been reading about him for only too many years, I always love to find anything that dispels the notion of Kubrick as the misanthrope, the hermit, and the just an ungracious man. Because to hear a story like yours of being put up in the hotel, suffice it to say, there are only too many other directors who wouldn't bother to accommodate. They say, right, here's a check, and you check in at this hotel, we've set you up. But not Stanley. He had to use your house, and therefore Stanley, the gentleman, had to provide you with, the best accommodations. And It's just great.
When I first met him, if I may interrupt you.
Please, please.
When I first heard about the film, I went to answer the phone and someone said, Stanley Kubrick's secretary speaking, and I thought, I've been discovered. This is my big chance. I mean, I've been working in, as you said before, in television and little bits, but nothing very much.
Right.
And so this sounded wonderful, a Hollywood producer, a Hollywood director. And then I suddenly realized she wasn't asking for me, she was asking for the house. But it still sounded great. So when Stanley came that day that Tony told you about, when I got back with the kids and, we discussed about what was happening, I told him this story and he laughed and he said, well, we need lots of girls in the film. So I'll find you something. And when came along and it was going to be this girl who was the nurse who did the injection, because in the book, the nurse does the injection, and she has a lovely dialogue scene with Alex flirting with her.
Oh.
And I thought, oh, this is great. This is great.
Right.
However, by the time it came to doing it, it was that they were using the doctor. They were establishing the doctor. And all I had to do was walk behind the doctor and do the injection. And that sounded as if it would be over and done with in about 5 minutes, but not with Stanley, because he had to have my hands and the light from the windows in a certain position. And everything had to be just so. And he kept saying, oh, no, the light's gone and we'll do something else. And then he'd come back to it. And then he'd say, no, it's too late. And I actually spent a lot of the time that I was there. It was at Brunel University.
Morning, Charlie.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Alex. My name is Dr. Branham. I'm Dr. Brodsky's assistant.
Good morning, Mrs. Lovely day, isn't it?
Yes, indeed it is. May I take that? How are you feeling this morning?
Fine.
Good.
When you were at Brunel University filming your scenes for the Ludovico Medical Facility, do you recall filming anything that did not make the final cut of the film?
I think there was a bit, yes. I think maybe there were cuts in the scene. But as I say, quite a bit of the time, I was with this very attractive Australian doctor. You don't know who he was, do you? He was, I suppose he was probably a little younger than me. I mean, I must have been in my 30 something.
Okay.
And learning how to do an injection.
Right.
And learning, playing around with my hands and all the rest of it. And then we'd be called in again. And so I didn't even see all of that scene being shot. I saw most of it. And my sort of bottom half of my trunk was in it as well as I know.
Well, that scene is...
So I don't really know I can't remember what was cut. You must remember that we didn't know it was... I knew that he was a famous director, but I went into the business expecting that I never thought I would become a star or anything like that, but I thought I would become maybe an actress whose name became a bit known on television and things like that.
Certainly.
And maybe occasionally got parts in the West End. I always wanted to do theatre, wanted to do Shakespeare. So I accepted, when I got parts, I accepted that was what I did. And I still, to some extent, do that. If I get a little part, this is acting, this is what I do. I mean, I've done it for so long.
Yeah. And I mean,
so it doesn't seem that special. Whether it's it doesn't really make that much difference if you're doing it with Stanley Kubrick, or if you're doing it with some person nobody's ever heard of or ever will, for that matter.
Yeah.
You're just
well,
doing
you
your job.
Yeah, I mean, and you did pursue you earned your job through dedication and perseverance, and in doing so, it's easy to say that you've gotten to live the dream, right? I mean, being a working actor or actress is every actor's dream, and I think you certainly achieved that. I find it fascinating that you.
There are 42,000 members of British Actors Equity at the moment, and that's just the people that have joined Equity, which in England is no longer compulsory.
Right. Wow. 42,000, yeah.
Out of which 41,000 are probably not working at any one moment.
Yeah. As is often the case.
Crazy.
But you've gotten to say that you have, and you continue to. I will come back to that later and ask you about your latest project, so long as we are not keeping you too long.
No, that's fine.
Feel free, fine. Yeah. But that's just fascinating to me that you would be so grounded when you were just starting out and have a very realistic approach to what you wanted to get out of your passion for the craft.
I was very nervous, and I was especially nervous because I felt as if I couldn't get it right for him. And I was worried, and I suppose in a way I felt more confident because I knew he was using our house and he needed me.
Right.
that may have added to it, but I truly don't remember that. I really don't remember that.
Well, that's another exclusive for our listeners. Shirley Jaffe is one of very few people who can say they had something over Stanley. And that's wonderful of you to share that with us, Shirley.
There's something else you might be interested in. When I went to his house. His house was in Elstree, which, as I said, next village to Radlett, and where we lived originally. And he had something in his garden. I can't remember if it was an outhouse or something, where he had buildings that he was using for making the film, including a place where I went for wardrobe to try on the uniform.
That was Abbott's Mead, if I'm not mistaken. Was that Abbott's Mead?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And sorry to interrupt.
It's a lovely road with beautiful properties in. I mean, one of the places very close to London. Lovely. And I had this white American nurse's uniform, and they were trying to imagine what it would be like in 2000. I can't remember the date that he said, but I think it was just before 2000 that planning the film's date was.
Interesting.
And I asked about it, and it was the makeup. That's right. So when I went and I put the uniform on and then did the makeup, and the makeup was very light, very little lipstick and things, and he thought that in the future the older women would wear a lot more makeup than the younger women, and there was a stage where that actually happened, at least in England, and the older women went on wearing more or less what they'd worn before, and I probably still wear heavier makeup than say my daughter never has worn much, and it does vary much more than it used to. In my day, everybody wore makeup.
Yeah, of course.
And this was one of the things that he believed would happen, and I think to some extent he was right.
Certainly wouldn't be the first time.
You see, in that sort of, you said about that sort of detail.
Right.
That he took, I think he came and they took stills on that day.
It certainly wouldn't be the first time that he accurately predicted trends in the future.
Yeah. I never met Burgess, the person who wrote Clockwork Orange. That would have been
Anthony
it.
Burgess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Stanley, of course, was known very well for never bending to the pressures of time and money while he was filming, and he was known, in fact, to take his own sweet time while he was filming, which begs the question, how many days were you on the set at Brunel?
3.
3 days.
Yeah.
That was a very matter-of-fact answer, Shirley. Thank you.
Well, it was amazing.
Clear
it was
as a
great
bell.
as far as I was concerned, because we needed the money. It was good. Really good.
Sure.
I was thinking about it since I've been in touch with you about this, and I was thinking, what a shame that we never, we didn't ever try to keep up the acquaintanceship. I mean, maybe I could have been in other films with maybe a little bit more to do, but
right.
I think that they were a bit fed up with us because we, in the end, cost them a lot of money. They were keeping a family of 4 in a 5-star hotel.
Right.
And then they redid all our lovely Junkers floors, which I must say were never quite the same again. As don't forget, the house was newish when they moved into it, and they did bash it around a bit with camera dollies and things like that.
Of course.
And then they decorated it all, and I think they were feeling that we maybe had taken advantage, and we felt that they had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's okay. I mean, these things go hand in hand.
Yeah,
it's rather like a bit of the yin to the yang, if you will. I mean, like he needed you, and you were only too happy to work for him, knowing he was already a very esteemed filmmaker at the time.
Sure. I mean, I knew that was very prestigious to get a job with.
Yes.
And then I was very fortunate in the sense that because the film wasn't shown, I could talk about being in the film, and people didn't know that I'd had such a tiny part because they hadn't seen the film.
Well, I did a bit of acting when I was a kid, and I remember them saying there are no tiny parts, only tiny actors, or small parts.
That's it.
Small parts, only small. Wonderful. With regards to your shooting at Brunel, can you share with us? Well, first, did you discuss the scene at all with Kubrick before your actual shoot date? And the second part of the question is, can you tell us about how the shooting of your scene went in terms of you working with Stanley?
Well, as I say, I was by this time a very minor character in it. The lady who played the doctor, whose name escapes me at the moment, we talked about what was going to happen, and she was extremely nervous because Stanley insisted that she actually gave an injection. She also practiced with this doctor and an orange.
I have heard that story, yeah.
You have heard this before, yes.
That nurses practice, yes, with hypodermic needles on oranges.
Yeah, well, that's what she was doing, and I've never really been able to, what's the word, separate the two in my mind, as if that was why it was called the Clockwork Orange.
Right.
Anyway, she was extremely nervous, and she said to me that she hated giving pain, giving distress.
Right.
And the extraordinary coincidence was that before I did this film, I did a documentary about people who had TB, tuberculosis.
Yes.
And because I played this character who hadn't taken her pills, I was given an injection in my behind.
Oh, goodness.
In this film. And the director phoned me up and told me about it, and said, "Is that all right?" And I said, "Well, I don't have to have a real injection, do I?" And she said, "Oh, no. Anyway, when we came to do it, and I jumped because the nurse pricked me with the needle.
Oh, gosh.
And the director said to me, it was a lady director, said, "I think you overdid the reaction." I said, "Well, I wasn't expecting her to actually stick the needle in." So when it came to, we were doing it with Alex, it was, I don't know who was more nervous about it, me knowing what it was going to be like, or poor Malcolm, or the lady playing the doctor. And it just went on, and for a whole 3 days they were filming in this room, in this little small student's room. I mean, it was very small. Because he takes so long to set things up, the light is changing all the time, and he's trying to get particular effects. I mean, I do think he's the most wonderful craftsman in terms of how the camera work and so on. I think absolutely brilliant. Don't remember him saying much to me except "put your hands like this" more. Or something like that. And then, "No, I'm sorry, no, it's no good. You'll have to come back tomorrow."
Right.
Because the light wasn't right. Yeah.
Fascinating. I believe that the female doctor you're referring to, the character Dr. Branham, was played by the actress Madge Ryan. Does that sound correct?
Madge, yes, that was right. Yes, I'm very bad at remembering names now.
No, cool. I'm happy to help.
No, she was a lovely lady. Yeah.
Well, I want to skip ahead just to January 1972, which, of course, saw the premiere of A Clockwork Orange in the UK. Were you there? Were you able to attend the premiere?
We were not invited.
Oh.
And I was interviewed by the local paper. And the good thing about not being invited was I actually had a witty quote, I believe, because they said, "We thought you'd have the best seats in the house." And I said, "No, but we've got the best house in the film."
That's
and that was
brilliant.
That was in the local paper. No, we weren't invited, and I don't know why we didn't try and go. Probably babysitters or something. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tony, are you back with us, good man?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Wonderful. I completely understand if I drove you away for that length of time. I would leave me by the wayside too if I could.
No, I was talking with an ancient cousin who is not particularly well and needs cheering up, and I was talking all about what we've just been talking about to cheer him up.
Oh, did it work?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Now, of course, in 72, I have to touch back on this now. When the film was released in England, there was, of course, no small measure of controversy surrounding the film on its initial release. There was a lot of controversy. Were you aware of any of that at the time?
Oh, yes. I mean, it was a national thing. People were
Tell
talking
us about that.
Well, people were talking to us, not just family and friends.
No, I had people saying to me, "How could you let your house be used for such a violent film? And didn't it sort of put you off the house?" But I suppose the thing is that if you're an actress, you accept fiction and have a very strong. You really have to have a very strong sense of what is real and what is not. Otherwise, you could go mad. I think
precisely.
A lot of actors who get mental trouble is because they cannot separate fact and fiction. And I found that I would never go to see, say, a horror movie and I would never have gone to see The Clockwork Orange if I hadn't been in it.
Right.
But after I've been in a Dracula film, they just make me laugh.
Yeah. Well, that's a testament to your courage, I think is an acceptable term, in your acting and your approach to the craft.
Yes.
That you are able to make that distinction.
Incidentally, there's something you may or may not know. Did you know that the girl who was playing Adrian Corey's part originally gave up after a day, or was thrown out after a day? She became hysteric.
Oh, my goodness.
Hysterical. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
That is all I know.
Wow.
All I know is that she'd had the push, and the next day Adrian Corey was called.
Wow.
Who was, of course, thrilled.
Yeah.
I don't know what her name was. I don't know whether she ever acted again, or I presume that they paid her off. I mean, it must have been devastating for her, because to have a leading part in a Stanley Kubrick movie and to be so frightened or upset or hurt by what happened, nothing more was ever talked about it.
Right.
I do hope that she got a lot of compensation, and that she felt okay about it afterwards.
Yeah, that's got to sting, to be summarily removed from any project, let alone one that would go on to become as iconic and influential as Clockwork Orange. Well, we hope she ended up okay, to say the least. Now, during the film had been in release for about 15 months before Stanley himself pulled it from distribution. As a sidebar, I just want to ask, because you'd mentioned the number of people who'd asked you, why would you allow your house to be used? Did you have any unwanted visitors or graffiti or anybody, kind of like protest at Radlett House? Anything that caused you and Tony trouble?
No, we actually, Kubrick rang up and asked, and was concerned that he'd heard rumors that there were people coming round to the house when they found what it was, and that was one of the factors in him giving up stopping the film.
Are you kidding me?
No, I think it was definitely one of them. Yeah, because of the copycat stuff.
Yeah,
we had sort of like gangs of boys in trucks, didn't we, on a Sunday afternoon?
Yeah.
And they'd say, "Is this the Clockwork Orange house?" And we say, "No, it's the other side of Radlett."
Oh my God!
And try and send them on a wild goose chase to get rid of them. I must say, I was never frightened.
No, we were not frightened, but he was more concerned, and and it could have got nasty.
Wow, that's a revelation. I mean, it's the fact that no one was harmed, and you folks never really felt that your safety was in jeopardy is great to know, but it had to be a little disconcerting at that time when you didn't know. And then to receive a call from Stanley to ask you about it personally, and your belief it may have been an integral part in his decision to pull the film. I just find that extraordinary. Yeah.
But you see, at the time, we didn't even think about it, because you've been involved in the film, Shirley mostly, obviously, and me with the house side. It didn't occur. You just saw the film being made, and we'd obviously seen the film. We didn't realize the impact that was being made.
Right.
Through. It's odd because, I mean, a slight diversion. I run a theatre during the Brighton Fringe. And last year, or was the year before, we did a screening of The Clockwork Orange. And we said that afterwards, Shirley and I would go down on stage and talk about it to the audience. And when we started the film, as you know, it starts in silence. Well, you had a whole audience of people. And I heard murmurs saying, "Sound's broken. Well, what's happened to the sound?" why is there no sound? They didn't know. They'd not seen the film, and the impact was enormous when it suddenly built up. Still had that effect, even though people knew about the Clockwork Orange. The effect was fantastic.
Wow,
that's a couple of years ago.
What a great story. Please don't let me go on. Anything that comes to mind, anything you want to share, because this is all rather revelatory. I'm loving it, and I believe our listeners absolutely will as well. So share any other little anecdotes that come to mind.
Has she told you when I was out of the room about the dog with the red mouth?
Yes.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Right.
Loved it. You missed the best part of our call, Tony. I'm sorry. It was all about Amos, and this podcast will be dedicated to
Amos.
To Amos and your cousin Tony. Can we ask his name?
Name's Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis. Well,
Ray Lewis.
I would like to dedicate this episode of Kubrick's Universe to Ray Lewis, and thank him for allowing us to help cheer him up a bit today.
Well, thank you for allowing Shirley to say a few words.
Oh, Shirley, you can't be serious.
Before he's off again then. No, I am serious. And don't keep calling me, Shirley, please. I'm going to cut this interview short otherwise.
Oh, no, sir. Please. I'm dreadfully sorry. I apologize terribly. I won't let it happen again.
I don't believe in Americans apologizing. I've heard Trump.
Yes, no, please, no.
But my cousin Ray was, in fact, the European managing director of Lorimar.
Oh, no kidding.
Kidding. Before he retired. He was heavily involved in the film business.
Yes, he was.
I know this one more thing we ought to tell you about the house and Clockwork Orange. We spent the money that they paid us for the hire of the house on giving the house a present, and we built a swimming pool in the house. And that was absolutely wonderful for our kids.
Sure.
Because it's not usual in England to have a swimming pool in your garden.
Right.
I mean, maybe in Radlett, which was a nice suburb, there might have been 2 or 3 in the whole area. And we had a lot of fun out of it while we stayed in the house.
Wow. That's cool. That's really cool.
It was very cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and cool to jump into, right? On a warm summer day. How long did Radlett House stay with you folks? What's the
We moved out in, I think it was 78 or 9.
Yeah.
And we went further out of London to a very old house instead. Oh. And then eventually we moved down to Dorset, which really put the kibosh on my acting career, because there was just nothing going on mostly, except I got that amazing job, bring us right back in full circle, the amazing job with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And that was just, I'd left some pictures at an agent's, thinking that they were going to, they did some casting for Emergency Ward 10, which was a soap opera, once a week, which is still running. And this chap did a lot of the casting for that, and I thought, well, I played lots of nurses, maybe there will be a job in that.
Yeah. I want to get to that, and that's going to be more or less my last formal question. My penultimate question, since you brought up the house again, I just have to ask if either of you were present when the conversation between Stanley and Malcolm took place regarding the notion to use the song Singin' in the Rain for the film.
No.
That's okay. We could expect not. I mean, but that's always something people are curious to know about the origins of how that came about.
Yes.
I mean, if you want me to make up a story and make it up, I'll do it for you.
Yes, I do. Of course,
I was standing there in the kitchen, and I overheard, but voices were raised slightly, and come on.
Go on.
Well, our floor would have been wonderful if you got him to tap dance.
Yeah.
I seem to remember reading about that. Yes, yes. Fascinating.
And Malcolm said, I can tap and sing and he started out singing in the rain, and then Kubrick said, shut up.
Right.
And there was a fight, you know.
And of course,
talking of the floors, the one thing that I haven't mentioned is that we were in the house when they were doing the scene where he comes back and he's lifted down the stairs, where Alex comes back and he's lifted down the stairs in the author's house, and they didn't carry a stand-in, as far as I know, for Malcolm, and so they used me as a stand-in with Dave Prowse carrying me down the stairs.
Frank, I think this young man needs some help.
My God. What's happened to you, my boy?
Can you tell me one thing? And I think then we're going to have to stop, because I realise I've got to go for an audition for tomorrow. And
lovely.
It means I've got to travel to London, so I don't want to be too late going to bed. Why did Kubrick come to England? Was it McCarthyism or?
I want Stephen to answer. I can offer the American's perspective, but Stephen?
Hello.
Are you there, lad?
I'm here.
Why did Stanley Kubrick come to England? I was just thinking about it today when I was going through the question.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few reasons why he did it. He had a bad experience in 1960 working on Spartacus, which was really it's the first and only film he's made as a director for hire. Kirk Douglas hired him, and he had a terrible time on that, with Kirk Douglas basically trying to tell him how to direct. So it really put him off the Hollywood power game. And then when he had a chance to make his next film, which was Lolita, he realised that we had a system in England to help movies called, I think it was called the Edie Plan. So that worked well in his favour. And also it was he was very worried about the nuclear threat as well at the time. And he thought England's a little
What's new?
Yeah, and he thought England was less likely to get blown up by the Russians as America was. So I think it was a mixture of all three. He wanted to get away from the Hollywood system and become independent. He wanted to take advantage of the great studios and technicians in England. And yeah, so that was generally why he moved from America at that point in the 60s.
I see. Okay.
But I think he got his revenge on Kirk Douglas because he left him hanging at the end of Spartacus.
He sure did.
Yes, he did.
Well, there you have it. Yet another road leading us back once again to Stanley. As we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Clockwork Orange, we are working to bring you a few more interviews soon. So stay tuned, Drugis and Devochkas. This episode was produced by Stephen Rigg. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and wherever you cast your pods. And feel free to join the world's greatest online community for Kubrick discussion at the Stanley Kubrick Appreciation Society on FB. I'm your host, Jason Furlong, saying thanks for being with us once again. We'll catch you on the flip side of the record. Deadways is right ways now.
It's Kubrick's universe. We just live in it.
We have taken very thorough precautions in this podcast.
against broadcasting anything which might only be attributed to human error.
These guys aren't scientists. They're making it up as they go along.
Thank you for listening to the Stanley Kubrick podcast. Come back soon.
It was real nice talking to you. Bye. Over and out.
This show comes to you from the Stanley Kubrick Appreciation Society.